Last week I was hanging out with a friend and he asked me, when's the last time you had a donut? But he asked it in that way that made it very clear that he hasn't had a donut in a long time. Here, let me try to ask it like he did. He asked it like this: when's the last time you had a donut? Right? There's a little bit of curiosity there, but also interest, where he's like, based on what you say, I might make a play here. And I know what play he was going for. He was going to ask me, do you think we should get donuts? But I'm way ahead of him, right? Because something, if you don't know me very well, you might not know this. I really like desserts. I got a sweet tooth, is what they call it. And I've watched over the past like year different friend groups. I can think of three off the top of my head. Three different friend groups that have discovered that, oh, I got a big sweet tooth on me. At any chance, I will push to get the dessert. I remember even telling someone very recently, they were like, you have a sweet tooth, don't you? I was like, yeah, I do. I was like, is that obvious? They're like, yeah, I didn't realize that until now. I'm like, well, then I guess it wasn't obvious, was it? And they're like, all right, easy. First they're sour, then they're sweet. But you seem to be the other way around. And you're not a Sour Patch Kid, you're just a piece of shit. I'm like, all right, easy, whoa. But I was like, yeah, no, I'm the kind of person that if we're, right, I'm at dinner with someone or something, and we're deciding between two desserts, I'll be like, why don't we just, yeah, I'm good to get both. I mean, if that's not breaking the bank for either of us, I don't see why we wouldn't do that. Let's just do both. And I'll do both. And so in this moment, when my friend was like, when's the last time you had a donut? I knew what to say. But unfortunately, well, fortunately for me and unfortunate for him, I didn't have the response he was looking for at first. Because I told him, um, actually, I try to get a donut every Friday. He was like, oh. I'm like, yeah, but no worries. Do you want to get donuts now? Because let's do it. And he was like, oh, fuck yeah, let's do it. But in that moment, right, when he was crestfallen, he was met with this news that, oh, getting a donut's a regular schmegular thing to me. He was like, oh, well, then we probably won't be able to do it because it's not special to him. Whereas if we were able to bond and relate and say that, oh, it's been a minute since I've had a donut, there would be more excitement going into the endeavor. And maybe I should have lied, right? What do you do in that situation? Do you lie so that the donut is even sweeter than it could be? Or do you tell the truth and establish trust, but still push for the donut? In both cases, you're ending up with a donut in the end, but which path you take will make the donut taste better. Arguably, I would say that they're probably about equal. I think by the time we got to the donut shop and decided on which one we were going to get, we kind of forgot our conversation because we were blinded by our goal. You know what they say? It's about the destination, not the journey. That's right. I believe in achieving the thing, not working for it. And related to that is rich people, right? And that's kind of what response I gave him was. That wasn't proper English, but let me try to explain myself. When he asked me, when's the last time you had a donut? He was looking for me to be like, oh, yeah, no, it's been a minute. But instead, I responded like how like a rich person would, right? I'm like, oh no, I do that all the time. Like if you were trying to go on a trip, right, with a rich person, but you didn't realize they were rich, you guys are friends, but you don't know actual things about each other, you might be like, hey, for this vacation, I was thinking, let's do economy plus. And if they responded and they were like, why would we downgrade for this trip? I'd be like, oh, no, 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 economy plus. That's like better than the usual. They're like, no, that's worse than the usual. And I'm like, all right, well, what are you talking about here then? They're like, why wouldn't we just go first class like usual? Hmm. Now, interesting. You ended that sentence by saying as usual, but then it was preceded by a very unusual thing because I've never gone first class. So what's that about? And then that's where you learn that, oh, this thing that I thought was going to be very special is like everyday shit for them. And that's how I kind of felt I responded to my friend. You know, he was trying to broach this topic and be like, hey, this is like a pretty exclusive, fun thing, right? That we can both bond over. But unfortunately, I was the rich asshole that went, nah, that's like every week shit for me, bro. Let's still do it, right? I'm down for that. But just know that I'm about that. I live this life, man. And so with the plane situation, right? You wouldn't go down to economy plus, right? You wouldn't agree with what they have to say. You'd bring them up to first class. And I feel like I did elevate the experience because I was like, yes, let's get donuts, but not just any donuts. I know some good spots around here. We'll go to the best one, in my opinion. What I really did was I laid out two different types of donuts. I even showed him pictures I take because I always take pictures when I go to these places. I'm like, if you're feeling more of a sugary donut, right? A little bit of a tighter donut, we can go here. But if you're feeling a little more cakey, go with these donuts. He's like, well, which one do you like better? I was like, right now I'm kind of liking the cakey one. I know. Not very characteristic for a guy like me because I love a Krispy Kreme. I don't really care for Dunkin' Donuts. I feel like it is too fluffy and cakey. I like how, small and sugary Krispy Kreme donuts are. But with the place I was talking about, this more local place, the cakey texture doesn't have the same kind of fluff as a Dunkin'. It has a more, local bakery fluff to it, which I welcome with open arms. But then we got to talking, and he was like, oh, really? You go that often? I was like, I do. And I was like, but can I tell you what? One thing I don't like. He was like, oh, here we go. I was like, donut holes. He was like, no, get the fuck out of here. What do you mean donut holes? What's bad about them? I'm like, well, there's nothing bad about them. When I go to this place, they do it for me. I did find out they do it for everyone. But for the first few weeks I went there, I thought they were doing it for me. But when they give you a donut, right, I usually just order the one. They'll put like 4 or 5 donut holes in it. And he's like, okay, I don't see the problem yet. I'm like, no, but that's exactly it. That's the problem. He's like, okay. Explain this one to me. I'm like, all right. When I go and get a donut every Friday, I just want the one donut, right? And I'm happy with that. But I'm happy with a few donut holes. I grew to love them. But then I soiled quickly on our relationship because what I found was I would, yes, come home, eat this donut, and then have this bag of donut holes just staring at me all day. All weekend, in fact. And I realized that, yeah, I felt like I had to eat them or else it'd be a waste, right? If I didn't eat these donut holes, I'm just throwing them away. I mean, by the good graces of this donut shop, they gave them to me for free. So what kind of fucking asshole would I be to throw them away? Oh my goodness. And to think about the environmental implications of just throwing away that dough, what was the energy used to make these donut holes? And that brings up a whole nother conversation, right? Like, where do donut holes even come from? I brought this up with someone a few weeks ago and they looked at me like I was crazy, but I thought I was asking a very simple question. See, donut holes, in theory, should just come from the middle of donuts that you made, right? You make some donuts and then you just cut out the middle and then boom, that's what you use to make your donut holes. Unfortunately, right, that's a very fairy tale-esque interpretation of a donut hole. I live in a jaded real world where I believe the donut holes are made just by themselves with the sole intention to make the hole. I don't think they come from a parent donut. I think people, set out to make these test tube holes. I don't think there's parents to the holes. I think they were made in a lab. Now, I might have lost you there for a second, but simply put, what I'm saying is I don't think people make like the normal donuts and then just get the middles from them. I think they have this little the cookie cutter thing that just cuts out little holes very closely to each other. And then you use the excess dough, you bunch it up again, and then you run it through the machine and you punch out a bunch of more holes. I think you purposefully make the holes. And so, yes, the energy it takes to make these holes, am I wasting that if I throw these away? But what I don't like is I come in to this engagement, right, this donut eating way, with the sole intention of let me just get a donut. That's all I want. That's what I paid for even. And so it's nice that they gave me a little bit of something on top, but I don't like the position it puts me in. Because I don't want to have to throw those away, and then I don't want to have to eat them because then I'm like, this isn't what I wanted. I forgot who it was, but there's a friend of mine that very beautifully articulated this. If you are going to eat bad stuff, you got to make it count, right? You only have X amount of calories you're going to eat in a day. And so if you're going to waste some on something that's not protein, because as social media has taught us, anything that's not protein, you might as well just not eat. It's not worth it. Everything needs to have protein in it. That's why I fucking hate that shit. You ever go on social media and they're like, wow, I made these cookies that are basically like, the best cookies ever. They taste like Chips Ahoy, except they have 18 grams of protein in them. Follow my non-bake recipe, and it just tastes like shit. Follow my bread pudding recipe that has protein in it, and you're like, oh, that looks good. Like, it looks so good. It looks really good. And then you try it and you're like, how are you even getting this down without water? This shit is like drier than a Popeye's biscuit. But you see these influencers online just throwing that shit down like it is as good. And they work for big protein. That's the problem. Where there's a will, there's a way. And that's way spelled with an H-E-Y. And that's why they try to force these shitty desserts onto us. But I'm not about that. I'm about good desserts, which is also why I want to forgo donut holes. You see, if I'm going to waste my calories, I'm not going to spend them on donut holes. I'll buy another donut and do that whole thing. Because really, right, I'm getting, what, 5 donut holes extra from this place? If you kind of bead those together like a bracelet, that looks like a donut. It's pretty much just another donut. So why wouldn't I just get another donut? So it's nice, right? It's cool, even, that they give me these extra donuts. Thank you. At a human level, that's awesome. But at a individual level, atrocious, right? It's great what they're doing. It's awesome to build community, but in a very individual world, right? I abhor the practice. Don't give me your free stuff. Save it for someone else. And now a normal person would be like, Garv, you're overthinking it. Just eat the fucking donut holes, and that's fine. But I'm admitting that I'm not normal in that way. That I do take issue with this. And speaking of, things you see on social media, I have to admit, I feel shameful in this admission, but I do have a guilty pleasure on social media, and it's TikTok edits. TikTok edits of what, Garv? You're on very thin ice here, bud. There's a lot of ways you could go. Pick wisely. And it's an innocent thing. It's just like sports edits or like movie edits set to some like early 2000s song. I don't know why, but I eat that shit up. I know it's cringe, but like, I don't know why I enjoy it so deeply, right? Like you see like a Hangover movie edit set to like, I don't know, fucking Cobra starships. And I don't know why, but that hits like a very visceral part of me that I like. I enjoy it. But I understand that it's cringe. But it's like the one thing, I feel like everything I do is very cool and suave, and respectable. But this thing, this endeavor, my TikTok sports and movie edits, pleasure, pastime, it feels shameful. And I just think putting it out there, admitting to this up front, getting in front of it, is probably the best thing that I could do here. Because that's bad, right? You could know me for a while and then that would come up and you'd be like, oh, now I don't look at them the same way, right? And I have, unfortunately, I'm just adding insult to injury. I have showed people in real life some of these sports edits. I'm like, yeah, look at this one. But let me add context. Don't jump on me quickly here. It was someone I was talking to basketball with. They were a close friend of mine, and we both enjoy sports, basketball in particular. And I was like, yo, have you seen these like TikTok edits? He was like, I don't have that app. I'm like, well, that's healthy. But do you know about these maybe? Because I know you're on Instagram. So you probably see these like 3 months later. But have you seen these sports edits? He's like, no, I don't have any look into that. I'm like, all right, well, do you want to see one? He's like, yeah, show me one. It seems like you're building up to that. I was like, was I? Huh? That obvious? He's like, yeah. Almost as obvious as you asked me about fucking donuts last week. I'm like, oh, that was obvious too, huh? Interesting. But I really like it. There was this good like few month span where they kept placing like Biba Doobie songs to like NBA highlights. I was like, yeah, this shit is awesome. I really claim I'm not a sports guy, but if you look at the evidence at hand, I'm a fucking sports guy, unfortunately. But not really sports. I don't give a fuck about sports. Like, I've been very openly against football and baseball because they are boring, but I love basketball. It is so fun to watch. In fact, I am in a bad way right now because this month, the first round of the NBA playoffs just ended, and that shit is eating up every evening of mine. I legitimately don't know when I will hang out with someone next because I spend every single evening from like 4 to 8 p.m. watching NBA playoffs, and I enjoy it. As a person that's like so critical of such nuanced, boring things on the internet, that is like the one mainstream thing where I'm like, that is awesome. But I've also been in full support of basic things, like I've talked about. I'm a full supporter, proponent of Uggs, of white vans back in the day. Pre boycott days, Starbucks. Go and get your frap, girl. Even me just saying that felt like appropriation. I can't explain it, but that didn't feel good. But I'm a proponent, right? I'm a fighter for the cause. And so, yeah, I should be a sports guy because that's like the most normal thing a guy can be. But I did show this friend, yeah, these edits. And, as much as like I said, can't take ownership of being a sports guy, I'll hear that, Baby I'm Back by Kid Leroy come onto my For You page, and then I see a Russell Westbrook edit. I'm like, yeah, this shit is awesome. It like fades away from him in a Lakers jersey to his like now Nuggets jersey. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. Let's keep doing this. I love this. I will eat it up. And I felt bad. That friend I was talking about that I showed like a year ago, these sports edits, he was like, wait, so you genuinely enjoy these? I was like, I hate to admit it. And I'm fully aware that this might hurt my image between just us. But yeah, I enjoy this. He was like, wow. We were going to hang out next weekend, right? I'm like, yeah, looking forward to it. He's like, I'm actually busy that day. I was like, really? Just something just came up or you forget about something? He's like, no, I'm just trying to surround myself with better people. I'm like, oh, is that right? Okay. Well, interesting. But it's not just that. It's not just sports edits and movie edits. I also really like watching old people dance really well. Like where they really break it down, where there's like a lot of pop and lock, but not like bad pop. Like, whenever you hear about, oh, an old person popped, that's not good. But they pop and lock it in a very nice way. So yeah, I just, in the nature of being more open with people, I figured that's a good one to get out there. If you were considering, I know we're coming up on our year here, our anniversary. So if you just were considering our relationship, I wanted to throw that one out there. Just in case you wanted to quickly pivot and get out of here, I wanted to, yeah, just put that one out there, huh? And in another very candid moment, transparent even, I would like to admit that I don't know what a fabric softener sheet does, but I do use them. And I noticed this week they feel great to use. I don't use them all the time. Like if there's even one piece of clothing that's like, don't use a fabric softener, like I have this, not a sports guy by the way, but I have this Kings jersey. And the Kings jersey very clearly says do not use fabric softener. So I don't use it when I do that load of laundry. But all other ones, right? Socks, sweats, towels, all that. I do put just one sheet in the dryer when I dry that load. That sounds dirty. And I don't know why, but using one sheet of fabric softener feels very nice to me. And I was like, what does this feel like? This feels so familiar and I don't know what it is. But I got it. I got it this week. Using one sheet of fabric softener feels like putting salt on eggs, and it's like the exact right amount of salt every time. That's what's great, because fabric softener, it's not like a powder that you pour into a cup and then you kind of sprinkle in there. It's just one sheet. Even laundry detergent, when you're doing the washing and you pour the soap in, that I'm kind of like eyeballing a lot. I know there's a little tray that says, oh yeah, when you get to here, stop filling. But even that, I feel like I'm a little off sometimes. But one sheet is always one sheet. And that's awesome. And I feel like same thing with eggs. I feel like every time, yeah, I'm pouring a different amount of salt. If only there was a way to regulate it, right? And that's why I fantasize. Not a good word to use, but you'll understand with context. I fantasize about sugar cubes. Now, I've never had sugar cubes. I've always just been just a canister of sugar guy. And then I eyeball stuff with a spoon. But a sugar cube, oh my goodness, I get the appeal. To know exactly how much sugar you're putting in every single time is like, oh, a thing of dreams. I can only, like I said, fantasize about such a thing. Now, Garv, you realize those are real things, sugar cubes. You can just buy them. I know, but I don't really drink tea or coffee enough to like justify that purchase. So I don't own that. But you would also maybe make an argument that the scarcity at which I partake in such a thing would maybe call for such precision, right? If I'm only doing something X amount of times, shouldn't I do it really well those times? So why wouldn't I splurge on a few sugar cubes? Also, sugar doesn't really expire, right? I know it doesn't with me because I've always been sweet. Stop it. God, we have too much fun, don't we? We're breaking up. But I told you our anniversary is coming up in just a month here, I think. Babe. But no, I really like that about a fabric softener sheet because it's the same every time. It's consistent, right? I like inanimate things more than I like people because you can always count on a fabric softener sheet. You can't count on people. Ironic for you to say, Garv, you're a terrible responder when it comes to text. Yeah, no, I know about that. I don't not know about that. See, I'm a bad texter. Hey, actually, you know what? I've gone on record saying this. I'll repeat it here. I think I'm an amazing texter, but I think I have a bad response rate. See, the thing is, if you get me to respond somehow, which I don't respond to anyone really, but if I respond, for some reason I'm in the mood to respond, I think I'm such an interesting person over text. The problem is, I don't do that ever. Like, 95% of the time, I don't respond. But when I do respond, I think I'm really good. I think I'm hitting like 100% of the shots I do take, but I don't take them very often. And so that's why I think my sugar cube habits should maybe model my texting habits. Even though I'm not doing it often, when I do it, I should do it well, shouldn't I? I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. But what's another thing related to sugar, right? Candy. Candy has a lot of sugar in it. I remember when I went to Canada when I was younger, my family, we did a road trip to Canada. We went up through California, Oregon, Washington. We, boom, ended up in Canada. What a tale to tell in 2025, right? I doubt things are that easy anymore. I don't know. But when we went to Canada, we went on this thing called the Capilano Suspension Bridge. And it's this bridge that connects to edges of a canyon, I think. I don't know. And it's way up in the sky. It's way above anything below you. And I think I have a slight fear of heights. And I'm sure it was birthed at that day, at that moment. It was traumatic, to say the least. I don't know why we were doing that. We were crossing a bridge. I'll look it up. I'll put it right here. How many feet above the bottom of that canyon the Capilano Suspension Bridge has suspended itself? But I don't know why my parents did that to me. Why would you take it? I don't know how old I was. I was maybe like 6 or some shit. That was nightmare material. I thought I was like, this is a test. Like, hey, if you make it past here, you're good. But like, there's a chance you'll die up here. I'm like, why would you do this to me? But then looking at pictures, I remember looking back. I was like, Capilano Suspension Bridge. And I'll probably do it right after I record this when I look up a picture. It looked very secure. It's actually not that scary. But as a child, that shit felt like that bridge in Indiana Jones where Indy and I think Short Round, right? They were like crossing a bridge and every step like fell beneath their weight. That's what it felt like, but it's actually very sturdy. And I remember when we were touring the bridge, which is also, what the fuck, guys? There was a tour guide on the bridge, and they would give us fun facts all along the bridge, and they would stop. I'm like, hey, why are we stopping? I'm trying to get to the other side. Every time you tell me some bullshit I'm not going to remember after today, you're just embedding the trauma even deeper. That's the first time. You're aware of the idea of the void calling. I don't know when it happens, but it's that feeling whenever you're up against some steep drop, while your body has that weird intrusive thought that's like, hey, jump. And you're like, what? They're like, yeah, no, jump. And you're like, that's going to end us. They're like, yeah, I know. But check it out. I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. They're like, no, I know. But I don't know. It's just like one of our features. We do that sometimes. And yeah, it's called the void. It's the call. I don't know what that is about. But on that Capilano Suspension Bridge, that's the first time I felt it. And one of the fun facts that they told us, I don't remember the exact measurements, but I remember they kept telling us that, oh, did you know The distance from this bridge to the ground is this many Snicker bars. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. In this moment that I'm terrified, I remember the entire bridge, I was screaming. I think part of me that was like, oh, this is a funny bit. Let me just scream the whole time. Let me act like I'm scared. But in a very real way, I was scared. I was doing exactly as I felt. I was a kid, so I was not smart enough to filter my emotions and my reactions to things. So I think, yeah, my blood curdling screams were real. I think they were coming from a genuine place and they were as sincere as they were loud. So, one of the fun facts, yeah, though, that they gave us was, oh, did you know that from here to the ground is this many Snicker bars? I was like, that's fucking ridiculous. Why is that? I mean, that's funny, nice to measure things in candy bars, but why are you telling me that? Is that supposed to soften the blow of the existential crisis I'm in right now? Because it did a little bit. I did start thinking about Snicker bars and how they have that nice, a nice caramel nougat feel to them. That's actually, you know what? In a sea of chaos, that's a nice little moment of calm I needed. Thank you, tour guide. You're a good one. But you did also lead me out here. So you are the cause and I guess the cure. Yeah. Big bridge, big suspension bridge. That's their whole ploy. They take you out there, they make you feel like you're going to die, and then they also take you off the bridge. So you're like, oh, thank you. You're now my favorite person. But you forget all about, how they got you in shit in the first place. Anywho, back to the Snicker bars. I remember them telling us that, oh yeah, we've measured how many feet this is, and we decided to convert it to Snicker bars. And it made me think, right, because I don't think we always went around telling people that, oh, I'm 6 foot this, I'm 5'11 this, which are the same thing. But before dating apps, when we didn't care about height, also before the NBA, right? Before there were like these actual uses for these giants that walk amongst us, we probably didn't really track height. We were like, oh, that guy's kind of like tall and that guy's kind of short, but we don't know. There's no numerical value to that. It's a vibe, And that's why, you work with people remotely and you can probably tell how tall they are just based on their vibe. I don't know if this is true, but a friend of mine put out this theory that based on someone's vibe, you can guess how tall they are. And I think they had pretty damning evidence, but I don't know yet if I give into the theory. I think we should do a real scientific method test and see if this theory has legs, but also how do you test for vibes, right? A little bit of gray area. It's a nebulous thing, but isn't that everything in life? See, science is nice because you can prove something one day, and then in like a few years, a new person can come in and be like, oh, that's wrong. Here's a new thing. And they might be wrong too. For a long time, everyone thought that the world, all the planets, they revolved around the Earth. And now we know it to be the sun. But do we? Like maybe in a few years, we'll be like, no, it's actually the Earth because of this. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, sure, I guess we'll go with that. But that is funny, right? I don't know if I've talked about this on here, that there are some people that lived and died with the full understanding that the world revolves around the Earth. And I believe in my lifetime I will be born and pass in the same time that the sun is believed to be the center of the universe. Because that is the truth, I believe, right? I don't fucking know. I have no reason to believe otherwise. But they measure these things in Snicker bars, and I just think before we started using feet and inches and all that shit, do you think there's a very, very real possibility that we might have measured things in candy bars? That if we never developed this whole sophisticated measurement system, that we would still be measuring things in candy bars? Like, I don't know how many Snicker bar tall I am. But maybe that would be what we were doing right now if it wasn't for some canon event all those years ago when some person created a standard that was like, no, feet and inches, that's what we're going to do. And so have they robbed us from the candy land that we could live in? I don't know. What was this episode? I don't know. Here's a little fleeting thought I had that I don't know what to do with, but I'll throw it at you just to end things off here. I thought about it, and everyone always says people are conventionally attractive, right? But I was like, how come you never see anyone say conventionally unattractive, which would be like conventionally ugly? And then I gave it even one more moment of thought, right? An iota of neurons. And I realized, oh yeah, because that would be fucked up. Because what is being conventionally attractive? It means it's the widespread understanding, right? The general understanding that this person, no matter your taste or your preferences, this person is attractive. So I was like, oh yeah, on the other side of the coin, if someone was conventionally unattractive, that would mean that yes, despite your taste and your preferences, everyone could agree that this person is hard to look at, you know? And I was like, oh, that's why we don't say it, because that's cruel. And you know what else is cruel? Watching this entire episode and not leaving a like and not leaving a comment. So make sure you do both of those things so that you don't continue this cycle of abuse. And so that I don't continue the cycle of abuse that was this episode, I'll go ahead and end it right here. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. As always, appreciate the support, and I will talk to you next week. Okay? Bye.